really our whole attitude towards the African people in this country, all the people of colour, is basically, I think, a moral issue. We want to use them. We have an economy which depends on them. And yet, we don't want to treat them like human beings and give them those basic things in a society. But somehow in South Africa, we don't seem to realize this.
And many South Africans, white South Africans, see no real alternative to the practice of apartheid. They have, by and large, been conditioned to accept that if political control slips away from the white man, this will lead to his economic and his political downfall.
The worst of all horrors in the world is to live forever as a slave, and this we reject.
My name is Godfrey Maseko. We lived in a place called Soweto. The place was in the middle of, a wide area. Because of the regime that was, in place then, the Afrikaner regime, we were forcefully moved out of the area to a place called Soweto. The removals started in 1952. The environment, the places that we moved to, were not as good as where we left. There was so much resistance, from the black community. We won't move. We're staying here. The regime had to, use aggression and violence. And it was just chaos, people were just, gun-butted and kicked around, and it was just horrible, horrible. I was 14 years old when we moved out of Soweto into Soweto. It really changed me because there was that anger in me, the whole black community that was moved from place to place. We had that anger, towards the apartheid regime. We just painted, the whites with the same brush. All whites are enemies.
A crowd of unarmed blacks demonstrating against the pass laws which restricted their freedom of movement were fired upon by the South African police. 69 were killed, 180 wounded.
There is room for all the various races in this country. There are many people who feel that it is useless and futile for us to continue talking peace and non-violence against a government whose reply is only savage attacks on an unarmed and defenseless people.
Most of us young people had lost hope that we would ever have great life in our time. I learned the hard way. My rough life caught up with me, and I was ill. I was infected with ulcers because of the kind of life I was living, drinking all the kinds of stuff. I was lying in hospital, and as I was lying there, I told myself that this is not the kind of life that I wanted to live. I decided that I was going to accept Jesus Christ into my life. I was going to be born again. That I was going to quit, living the rough type of life. And from then on, I didn't turn back. When the gospel was preached, the 7 words of the cross, when Jesus forgave his enemies, and I just wondered, what kind of person is this? These people, they abused him, they did a lot of bad things to him. But to my surprise, he kept on saying, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. So if Jesus Christ could do that to the people who abused him so much, and the Bible is preaching about forgiveness, it was just, amazing to me. Because I grew up with that anger, and I told myself I wouldn't forgive the regime, any time in my life. And over time, the gospel changed my mind, changed my perspective. The color doesn't matter. It is only the character of a person that matters. Fortunately, we had whites that stood, with us as blacks. We just the same. It's just the difference is color. So my perception of hating whites because of the oppressive, ways changed then, and I took, whites as whites, ordinary people who can be bad and can be good. It's just like us as blacks.
Each time one of us touches the soil of this land, we feel a sense of personal renewal. We are moved by a sense of joy and exhilaration when the grass turns green and the flowers bloom. We succeeded to take our last steps to freedom in conditions of relative peace. We commit ourselves that we shall build a society in which all South Africans, both black and white, will be able to walk tall without any fear in their hearts.
I have learned to live on hope. There's no changing in a person who doesn't have hope. So as a Christian, I have learned to grow. Now, my hope is that if God would sometimes touch the hearts of the people who are in power and make them realize that He promises us that if we trust in Him and have our hope to Him, He will heal our land. So I hope this will happen to South Africa too.